Hello and welcome back to my channel. I try to put up a new video every week. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified straight away of any new videos. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a like. It really helps to motivate me to keep making new content. So this is the famous Singer 99. The Singer 99 is basically a portable version of the Singer 66. Although being cast iron, it's still very heavy. It's known as a 3/4 size sewing machine, as it's approximately 75% of the size of a 66. It uses most of the same mechanics as the 66, just in a smaller format. The 66 was often found in treadles, whereas a portable 99 is usually in a carry case, although some were fitted in treadle tables. The 99 was introduced in 1911 and only went out of production around 1962. It was one of Singer's most popular machines. Over the 50 or so years, the 99 had many variations. All Singer 99s are straight stitch machines, with zigzag capable machines not really being introduced to the domestic market until the mid-1950s. However, there are attachments available to enable these machines to do zigzags and buttonholes. The first machines were hand cranked, and their stitch length regulator was just a screw, with no indication of stitch size. There was also no reverse setting on these machines. The tension assembly had no markings on either, so at a glance you can't see how tight or loose the tension is set. Early machines had an elaborate system for winding the bobbin, with a cam that controlled how the bobbin was wound. As electricity became more widespread, Singer started fitting the 99 with a motor. Earlier machines could also be converted to electric, with a simple bolt-on motor. The latest machines introduced a reverse function for backtacking. These also had a numbered dial on the tension assembly. They also had a more simplified bobbin winder like this one. Earlier machines had more elaborate decals and finely patterned faceplates, whereas later machines had simpler decals and less elaborate faceplates. Some machines came with spoked flywheels, while some, particularly those that were factory fitted with motors, had solid flywheels. This particular 99 was made in 1960. It probably left the factory with a motor, yet has a spoked flywheel, meaning it could be retrofitted with a hand crank if desired. The Singer 99 has a drop-in bobbin system and uses Class 66 bobbins. These have a slightly curved or domed sides. They are still available new in both metal and plastic. However, I recommend you seek out original vintage Class 66 bobbins for this machine. It was designed to use metal bobbins, and as plastic is lighter, it can affect the tension and smooth running of the machine. New metal bobbins are available, but they are not machined to as high a standard as the original ones, and often vintage machines have problems when these are used. In 1958, Singer introduced the 185 to replace the 99, although the 99 was still available up until 1962. However, the mechanics of the 99 were tried, tested and reliable, and produced a great stitch, so they were carried over and used in the 185s. So basically, the 185 was a rebodied 99. The new, more modern casting looked similar to the treatment the Singer 201 received, but gone was the traditional black. In the UK and Europe we got two-tone brown and beige model in a fabric-covered wooden case, while in the States the 185 was finished in a pastel green colour and came in a plastic base. In 1963 the 185 was replaced by the 285. While this looked almost identical to the 185, it had redesigned mechanical parts underneath, which were cheaper, noisier and much less refined, and so the 285 proved unpopular. To wind the bobbin on this machine, you need to disengage the flywheel from the mechanism by holding the flywheel and rotating the stop motion wheel anti-clockwise. To remove the bobbin, slide the bobbin cover plate back, and there's a small button just here. Press that and the bobbin will pop up, making it easy to remove. Remove any thread already on the bobbin. Winding new thread over old can make the thread wind unevenly and can affect the balance of the bobbin, causing problems such as irregularity of the stitches. Place the spool on the spool holder with a felt circle underneath. The felt circle is there to stop the spool from bouncing around when the machine is operated quickly, and adds a little friction, so when the machine stops, the spool doesn't continue to spin. The spool should be placed on the pin so that when the thread is pulled it spins in a clockwise direction. Take the thread across to the top thread guide and diagonally down to the bottom right hand thread guide. This is only used when winding bobbins. If you look at the Class 66 bobbin, you'll see there's a hole in the side. Pass the thread through this hole from the inside and place the bobbin on the winder. Move the winder down so it engages against the belt. Then operate the foot pedal. Gently at first for a few revolutions, then snip off the excess thread. Continue winding until there's sufficient thread on the bobbin. This particular model doesn't have an automatic shut-off for the bobbin winder. Ironically, the earlier machines had. Retighten the stop motion wheel to engage the needle bar. To load the bobbin into the machine, move back the slide plate and position the bobbin so the thread comes off in an anti-clockwise direction. Slot it into the bobbin case and gently pull the thread to ensure it moves in the right direction. There's a slight groove here that the thread has to slot into. Then move the thread around clockwise to the next groove. Take the thread over and into the groove and leave it just under the needle. Slide the bobbin cover closed. To thread the top of the machine, first lift up the presser foot and turn the hand wheel towards you until the take-up lever is at its highest point. Lifting the presser foot moves the tension discs apart, making the machine easier to thread, and also make sure that the thread goes right in between the discs. Take the thread over the first guide and then down to the right of the tensioner, then up and between the tension discs. You'll see a fine check spring on the left hand side of the tensioner, and the thread needs to go up and over that, and then back down. The thread goes underneath this guide. You'll notice there's a hole in this guide and many people think you have to put the thread through it. You shouldn't for normal sewing. I believe that's used when darning. Take the thread up to the take-up lever and thread it through the hole from right to left. Next, take the thread down to the faceplate and slip it into the guide there. There's a final guide just above the needle clamp, and thread the needle from left to right. Next, we need to bring up the bottom thread through the needle hole. Hold the top thread while slowly rotating the flywheel by hand towards you. As the needle goes down, a hook on the bobbin race catches the thread and passes it over the bobbin, pulling up the bottom thread. When the needle's back up to its highest point and the take-up lever is at the top, you can gently pull the top thread and the bottom thread should appear looped over it. Gently pull the bobbin thread up through the needle hole and place both threads under the presser foot and to the back of the machine. We're now ready to sew. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.